like to welcome everybody here to another episode of Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. And I tell you, I am having so much fun doing this, talking to you guys and interviewing amazing guests. And it's just, I'm having a great time doing this and learning a lot of things too. And I hope you guys are too. I mean, we cover so much on this channel. We cover cryptocurrency, which I think is something that's really important for people to start looking into. And it's, it's a little daunting at first. So I'm glad that we got Paul coming on once a week. He's breaking cryptocurrency down. We cover all kinds of things, as you guys know, the paranormal, murder, true crime. We touch into that as I did with the Crowley case and stuff like that. So, I mean, doing a lot of great things here. Got a lot of great interviews planned for 2022. And this is amazing. And I've been so excited to get this guest on. And, I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like, his life has been so amazing. And I started reading his book. He does have a book called Ultimate Prey. And it is basically the breakdown, the true story of the Yosemite Murders. And it's an amazing book. Yep. And hold on here. I'm going to actually bring you in. Just give me 1 sec here. There we go. There is my guest, Steve Sanzeri. How are you doing, my friend?
Crypt Rick, I am honored. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. I'm so excited to have you here. I remember when I met you earlier. I met you on another podcast when you were on Greg Fernandez Jr.'s podcast, and I met you at that time. And then Greg was telling me about your book and stuff like that. So I definitely had to pick up your book and start reading it. And I mean, I'm telling you, Stephen, you've had a life that is incredible. You've done so much, and the book is amazing. Like, I'm still working my way through it. So it's a page turner. It really is. And you've done so much. So I figured, like, what's the best way to start this? I figured, like, why not break this down into, like, 2 or 3 interviews, because to try to get your whole life into like a hour and a half, 2-hour interview just doesn't do it justice. So I thought, let's start at the very beginning, let people get to know who you are, and then we can work our way up through it and through the years. And I think that would be a great way to do it. So why don't you let everybody know, who is Stephen Sanzeri? Like, how were you when you were younger? How did this all start?
Well, it's also current, so slow me down if I get a little speedy on this, because
Not a
it's like
problem.
very
Yep.
exciting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Third generation, born in 1959 in San Francisco. Um, uh, Grandparents, my father's side from West Virginia, Sicilian Italian. Mother in San Francisco, born in 1937, Irish. And a my grandfather was great. Her father, born 1901. So I got to hear about the 1906 earthquake. He passed away in 72. So I was 12, 13 years old. I heard those stories. He was a man who probably my biggest influence, more than my father, and worked in the docks. He was an orphan at 9 years of age, and it ended up being inspector during World War II and Coast Guard clearances and everything. And it taught me, and he said, if you learn the trades, you'll never starve.
Right.
And that's why I think my entrepreneurship, or my, my vast experience and all these different things. And I also get bored. I'm a little ADHD, I admit it, but I've learned to control that and to complete a project at a time, even though you have 10 of them out there. Like Einstein said, throw all the clay against the wall, which one sticks? Sometimes a few of them stick.
Exactly. That's right too. Like, and that it's very true. Like, I'm the same way. I don't just focus in, like, usually on one thing. Because a lot of people have asked me about my podcast. They're like, what is your podcast about? And I said, it's always in the title. Crypt Ricks, I've been thinking, and it's stuff that I think about, and that varies. Like, I have a lot of different interests, and I kind of dive. But once I do lock onto something, and I'm sure you're the same way, you really lock onto it. So that's one of the good things, is when I do lock onto a topic, I really want to lock onto it and learn about it. And I mean, it was like, that's what I did when I started reading your book. I just couldn't. It's an amazing book. I'm definitely going to make sure, everyone, that there's a link in my description when you see this. That's going to be a link right to go and get in his book. Make sure you pick this book up, guys. It is amazing. And his life story is amazing. I'm just like, it really is a page turner. And I just really want to say that. So what I wanted to ask you about, though, Stephen, was, I definitely know that when you were younger, you were definitely into sports and bodybuilding and all of that kind of good stuff. Can you take us back to what got you into that? Like, what drew you into bodybuilding and that whole lifestyle, because that is a big lifestyle. From what I've seen, it's a big commitment, and I just want to get like what made you go down that path.
Rick, I'm probably not the only story out there that's exactly like this. As a kid, I mean, I was the skinniest kid on the block. A lot of energy. I'm the guy who would climb the tree, and never broke bones or anything, but and aggressive, I guess, for that age, but not like the tiniest guy, just skinniest. I remember sneaking on to Pop Warner in San Mateo for the Junior Hillsdale Knights at age 12. My parents wouldn't sign the waiver, and the coach finally sent me home, and because I was too skinny, I couldn't play. And I saw everybody else playing, and they were bigger and stronger. And so, just like it's really interesting, that Charles Atlas thing in the early 70s was not rare, because you'd go in the back of a magazine. It could be Popular Mechanics, but they'd be kick sand in your face, and and I mean, you start looking at that, and I started kind of getting into that part of it. But also, like I talked to Greg Fernandez Jr. on the last podcast, was the WWF, for the Big Time Wrestling on Channel 2 in the Bay Area, going to the Cow Palace. Our parents, I mean, if you went to a wrestling match at Cow Palace in 68, 69, half of them were women, kids. We go home watching on Saturday night, Friday night wrestling or whatever. But I saw the builds on these guys and how they flew around. And then I spoke about the Rock's father, Rocky Johnson. I mean, my God, the guy was built like the Hulk, and Rayford Johnson, the great Olympic athlete. And I saw the builds on these guys. I said, oh, yeah, I want to look like that guy.
That's incredible. Like, and I mean, these and we were talking about that because when we were talking about your gym and stuff like that and wrestling and that's and I still remember back when I was younger too. I was definitely the scrawny. I was just like you. I was the scrawny kid. Like I couldn't gain. It didn't matter how much I ate, how much I worked out. I didn't gain weight. Like, it was incredible.
Oh, we could eat a whole pizza back then,
And I never gained weight, and I never got that muscle. So I remember looking at, like, I would definitely buy the muscle fitness magazines with all these gigantic bodybuilders in it, and it just blew my mind. I was like, how are these guys it's incredible the size these guys get. And then I remember going to my first wrestling match for a WWF at the time, which is now WWE, and to see these guys in person it's incredible. They're monsters. I didn't know that people could get that big. So I mean, it's crazy. But so what made you want to open it like that? Like, I definitely get the bodybuilding in that, because that's definitely a really cool thing to sculpt your body, especially if you were the scrawny kids like we were. What made you want to open a gym? Like, what brought you down that path and all of that? And you're also a police officer at the time, I gotta add, when you had this gym. Kind of, it was all going on at one time, if I'm correct.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there was a point where I think it was 79. I was 19. I competed in a Teenage California contest. I didn't make the final cut. I came in 12th. So it's the top 10. And I forget who won that year. He went on to win the Teenage America that year. And my parents were really neat. I drove up with a couple of friends. I'm going to go into this contest. I've been training. I was a Teamster with Van Waters, and I'd work out. I mean, I was driving to San Bruno. I mean, my father and I worked together. He's a foreman. I'd be falling asleep on the way home from work in the truck. And I would go train, and I wanted to be a bodybuilder. And my dad said to me, and he was my Little League coach since I was 9, said, unless you do something, he didn't say steroids, but he saw me up there. My parents drove from San Mateo to Stockton to see me compete. And I just wasn't in that class. And I kind of realized, like baseball after American Legion, I kind of hit a peak. Maybe it's not the genetics, I never heard of steroids in 1979. They were there, but so I always wanted to be a coach. If I went back to college, I would have coached. And I did coach high school football and baseball and such, but to get the degree. But next best thing was not only to open a gym, which I was influenced at about 12 or 13 in San Mateo. There was a little, like I told Greg, a little 800 square foot, one bench press, and a couple dumbbells. And walked by, there was a couple guys in there, but I mean, there was no gyms in the 70s anywhere, and even in the Bay Area, unless it was a big name, and there was a couple. Jack LaLanne or some had one. Mm-hmm. And I was intrigued, and when I got older, I kind of had an entrepreneur's, like, what's not in this, not San Mateo town of 90,000, what's not there is another gym. So I kind of I saw a void to be filled, a problem where, and I loved it and I was wanting to work out. So if I can't be a bodybuilder, maybe I can coach bodybuilders or have a gym for bodybuilders.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And I just think like I do remember when I was working out when I was younger, and it's definitely like I was saying, it's a definite lifestyle. And when you see the commitment that these athletes make, I call them athletes because I mean they
Sure,
are athletes, and you see
they
the
are.
work that they go into putting
Oh,
to get their body to what it is, and they're so strict, like how many calories they're taking in, and how often they're working out, and I just saw people at the gym, and I was like, wow, like you really have to be dedicated to if you want to get to like like these Arnold Schwarzenegger guys back in my day. He was a big thing
oh,
for
my idol. My
exactly, yeah,
Oh my God, he was nothing like Arnold. I mean, we started hitting the weights in the garages at around 12, 13 years old. Muscle Fitness is out. By 72, Arnold won the Olympia. He'd won Mr. America, Mr. Universe, on the cover, and and the Robbie Robinson and Mike Menser and Serge Nubret, all these guys. But Arnold, unless he's next to, when the Franco Colombo is probably the closest at the time, but it's an overall for the Olympia. And Franco was a short man, but next to Arnold, no, that's the Hulk Hogan of bodybuilding.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, he was huge when we were younger. Like for me, that was the thing. Like everybody's like, you got to be like, look at the size of him. But then we started getting into the wrestling era and stuff like that, and then that's when I really noticed like that back because I remember back when I was watching wrestling, Steven, like in the like when I was younger, like in the early '70s, and wrestlers were not. And we were talking about this kind of off air earlier today that they weren't these chiseled out guys. Like there was a couple like that, but they were just great big tough guys, but they were, they didn't look like they do like in the 80s with the WWE, like and all chiseled like that. These guys were built, they were strong, and but they didn't have that look. And it was kind of like when the 80s came around, I guess is when Vince McMahon, for whatever reason, that was the look he was going for. Did you, when you had your gym, did you ever meet any, was there any wrestlers going into your gym? Did you meet any of them that were working out and etc.?
Yes, I sure did. I got to befriend many of them. I met the wrestlers and got into the WWF in 1981 when I opened my first little tiny gym called the Body Factory on 43rd Avenue in San Mateo.
Right, right.
And so that's when I opened the first gym. This is prior to the Golds thing. And I've just gone through the academy, and the gym opened up about, I think, 2 weeks after I graduated, and I'd gone out to Burlingame Police Department. My partner Chet Meck ran the gym during the day, and it wasn't making a lot of money, but we were getting a lot of activity. It was new for us. I'd never been in business. Guys were coming in. Even our equipment was basically homemade by a guy named Steve McNally, a metal shop guy. And next door to the gym was a jeweler, and this was a strip mall, very small little storefronts. And a wrestler when I was a kid, and it was in the '60s, named Red Bastien. They used to call him Flying Red Bastien. He was one of the first guys to wear a mask. And I remember watching him, and he was the father-in-law of the jeweler next door. So he'd come in, and I gave him a free membership. I mean, my God, we became really good friends. I mean, pretty close. And he said that he was a representative, and Vince McMahon was just taking over the WWF from his dad. I mean, not told his dad or passed, but they want to bring wrestling back to the West Coast. Hadn't been here 20 years, man, or so, 15 years because of the '60s. And so Red was kind of the representative for McMahon out on the West Coast, and started, getting involved in my gym a little more. He was even looking at guys who maybe could wrestle. It was still kind of infantile, but yet nobody was wrestling on the West Coast except up in Oregon. Some of the guys you were talking about in your franchises that you managed, it was kind of spread out. Canada with Mexico. I mean, so the whole northern hemisphere had wrestling, but it was so spread out. So it brought to the West Coast. Next thing you know, that they got the Hulk Hogan. Mr. Wonderful's coming up. Piper had been there. Santana and Steamboat have been there. Demolition Axe had been there. And this is prior to the Hart Foundation, some of those guys. And so they brought it back to the Cow Palace, and I started getting tickets. So I started getting involved, and Red would come in. I learned everything. So I started getting that. And then we went to Gold's Gym 2 years later. I had all those guys in the gym. because wrestling now is 2 years on the West Coast, the Cow Palace, Oakland Coliseum. I mean, there was cards. I mean, I told Greg, but one time he couldn't believe it, but there was cards every 2.5 months on the West Coast at the Coliseum or Cow Palace. And we're talking from the Sheik to the British Bulldogs to Randy Savage, the Hulk, once the wonderful Tito Santana, Outlaw Ron Bass. I get Brian Blair. Everybody started coming over to Gold's Gym. And that's when I got into, because they were my friends. They come in, they'd actually take a limo after they ate breakfast and drive over across the San Mateo Bridge from Oakland, and then come. They don't walk in. These guys are huge, and sometimes I see some. I straggle in because I was working as a cop, but when I got to know them, there's always tickets there, and so it was a wonderful time.
Right, right. No, I agree, and that's like I should mention that too. That when you did open your gym, it wasn't you didn't start because you eventually became Gold's Gym. But what was the name of your gym before you transferred over that? Can you kind of walk us through how long did you have your gym that you opened before it actually transferred over to Gold's, and that's when the wrestlers started coming around and all that kind of stuff?
Oh man, great question. I'm sorry, I told you I ran. Um, just before the police academy, I had this idea about there's no gyms in the area in San Mateo, blah blah blah. And I approached my partner Chad Meck, who had married my cousin. Great guy, and the best partner I ever had. And I said, let's do this gym. And he came. The guy was an artist too. It's called the Body Factory. He rented a building. It was $1,300 a month. Had one shower, like I said, 800 square feet. But we were drawing from 90,000 San Mateo with nothing around in other towns. We're drawing like maybe 200,000 people, and so it started building up. And I was a cop making pretty decent money in Burlingame in '81, and I remember, like I told Greg, was that after about a year, and I kind of like to move on. I mean, if something's not working, and I'm not, even though I was passionate, and I remember going to my mother, and she says, "Hang in there, man." She came by, she saw what I didn't see. I saw another car in front yesterday. That adds up. Boy, my mom was smart. Listen to her. And then 2 years later, around 1984, is when Gold's Gym started to offer licensees. Now you got a franchise like McDonald's or Burger King or whatever. You follow the rules, same menus, same food. Everything is all designed to be exactly the same SOP. With Gold's Gym, they were licensing this thing with no royalties, which makes it not a franchise. So it cost us $3,500, and we could put a Gold's Gym sign up on a building. Now the building had to be over 8,000 square feet. You had to have certain types of equipment. So we were able to fulfill that and get the license, and we put the sign up. I mean, it was like opening the only McDonald's in the Bay Area. Everybody's going to come.
Right.
And they did. And so we attracted the top athletes, the 49ers, the Giants, Olympic athletes, top cut in the Taekwondo. We rented a studio next door that we rented, and the wrestlers. And so I had not only some of the greatest athletes we had in the nation and everything else, and these guys, it drew other people in. And no, they didn't charge professional athletes because our members loved to work out next to them. And they were all gentlemen. Everybody was. You see Ronnie Lawton, their Hall of Famer. You see Jeffrey Leonard from the Giants, Ellison from the Niners, Mr. Wonderful. I mean, Mr. Wonderful loved our place, So it was a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. Like, and then back then, I think I remember you saying too, I heard you in a previous interview that back when you guys transferred over to Gold's Gym, they didn't have as many Gold's Gyms around as they do now. Like, and like back then, you were kind of in on the ground floor, right? When they kind of just branched out and let people start using the name and stuff like that. If I'm correct, I think I remember hearing you talking about that.
Yeah, we were the 24th Gold's Gym ever.
Wow. So,
and I think the last really count, that's 4,200 worldwide now. I think it hit almost 5,000 years ago, but there's like 4,000 worldwide now.
Wow. Okay. So that's amazing. And that's really cool. Like you were definitely in on the ground floor with the Gold's Gym thing, because I remember back in the '80s, Gold's Gym was huge. Like, and then they were really smart, and they started actually selling their merchandise in a I think Macy's or something like that. They got smart, and it just blew up from there.
Yeah, apparel. I mean, it better kept our electricity. Apparel probably paid our rent for half the year. It was so small then. We talk about branding and marketing. The fitness convention was in Florida, and I want to say 1985, 84, 85, and we had Gold's Gym. And the Mr. Universe contest was also there too. So you got the fitness convention and the Mr. Universe, and you know what? Everybody's there. It's the universe. It's not now, next to the Olympia. It's Mr. Universe, And I told my partner, we're talking about something. He goes, and this is up in Napa. You could bottle your own wine with your own label. Mm-hmm. So we came up with an idea. We're going to have Gold's Gym wine. So we went to the one of the wineries up there that bottles, and we did a logo. We used their logo without their permission, of course. We brought back like 3 cases of Gold's Gym wine to Miami. And we get paid off. We were at the head table. I'm sitting next to Rachel McLeish, Andrea's calling, Mike Menser, Robbie Robinson, the Gronkowski brothers that run the thing. I'm at the head table at the Mr. Universe contest. And I'm like, wow, man, it wasn't just because of the wine. But back then, everybody was new at this, because what happened was Joe Gold had Gold's Gym. He put it on Venice Beach in the 60s. He sells it to Ken Sprague. And Ken Sprague had some visions. And the guy, I never met him, but he died of cancer at a young age. Apparently a great guy. Well, the Gronkowski brothers, Pete and Paul was a Mr. America. He was huge. You want to ask me about the guinea pigs in the U.S. Army with steroids? Did you know the U.S. Army one time experimented on Army soldiers with steroids, and that's how Pete got started? I'll go back to that.
Wow. So, see, that's crazy because but why doesn't it surprise me? Yeah, why doesn't it surprise me that they would experiment on him? Like, it shouldn't surprise me.
So after the Army, he kept his bodybuilding up, became Mr. America, but his brother was more a business guy, just a regular, didn't look at bodybuilder. So they took and had the idea from Ken Sprague to license this Gold's Gym, which was ingenious. And then, like you said, you're correct, of a year later, apparel was in Macy's signed a contract for like $300 million. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I mean, it's funny. There's a Macy's in San Mateo, and we had Gold's Gym in Foster City, which is, a mile and a half away. But we didn't hurt our sales. There was enough sales across the railroad tracks. We never, and we thought it was the greatest thing ever. But you know what? It's branding. It's Gold's. It's like Smirnoff or something, whatever it is. I mean, everybody. When you buy that, you got a product, and they were smart. Oh, the Gronkowski brothers were geniuses. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, just doing the branding like that. And I remember I remember even when I was younger, and if you watched, like, bought the wrestling magazines or any muscle fitness magazine or anything, Gold's Gym had their label on everything. Like, they were really, and you saw all the big guys. I remember seeing it. I was like, even when I was working out as a young kid, I wanted one of those Gold's Gym shirts.
Oh, everybody did.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah. So, but what I wanted to ask you was how, now, we were talking off air, and you wanted me to remind you that back when you had this gym, that there was kind of a criminal thing that kind of happened there. And if you wanted me to remind you about what kind of happened in the gym with drugs and stuff like that.
Oh my God! Hold on a second. I'm parched. I'm gonna get some water. Okay.
Yes,
hold on.
You go right ahead.
Oh, that's an interesting story, Rick.
I know. That's why I remembered to ask. You told me to ask you, and I was like, okay, I got to remember to ask him, but how do I bring it up? So, yeah, I definitely didn't. I wanted to touch in on that and kind of get your story on what was going on, because it kind of leads the story forward. And I just think that it's, you're a police officer, you're running a Gold's Gym, and then it kind of leads into this story, which, when you tell it, people will kind of understand where it's going. So
yeah,
go right ahead.
So I was a police officer in Foster City, and I was a level 1 reserve. I left Burlingame full time, went to the gym business full time. So I left the police department. I was young. When I extended probation, they kind of let me go. And I was like, okay. So I said, you know what? I'm making as much money in this gym business, because Gold's had opened up when I left Burlingame. And then I got kind of talked into going back in. I did, and I ended up being sergeant, charge of reserves, and so it was pretty good. I worked narcotics. So I went up the ladder from reserve, because I wasn't, police work was great, and I went through it. But man, this gym thing was passion before that. But so I had both the Gold's Gym and being a cop, and it became full time. So I had full time gym, full time police work. So it was a summer or whatever, and I got a call from one of my shift sergeants. I was off duty. Now you got to remember. Foster City, I bought a townhouse right across the road. I walked to work. It was like 200 feet, and 3/4 mile down the road in Foster from the police department was my gym. in a shopping center called Marlin Co. Safeway was the anchor, B of A. So it wasn't, it was a pretty good sized place. And so the sergeant asked me to come over. I walked across the street, and there was detective cars in the parking lot. It looked like a detective convention because you can see what you see undercover cars look like. And I went in there. Oh my God, every narcotic guy, guys in the academy, everybody's in there. And so what happened was they're working one of the biggest cocaine busts in Northern California history, and it was centered in Foster City. Well, they tell me and this and that, and pretty much tell me I got to work this case because the kingpin of this $30 million cocaine thing, and there's machine guns and everything attached, is a member of my health club, Gold's Gym. I'm like, you got to be kidding. And I remember the head of the task force telling me, and I said, what's in it for me? I live across the street from the police department. The kingpin is 3/4 of a mile away. You got guns, we got dope, and this is terrible. And what's in it for me? Oh, we won't work your gym for steroids. I thought, you know what? And I wanted to say USOB. My sergeant pulls me aside and says, Steve, you got to do it. So I drive down to the gym and I pull the, gym records. The guy's there. His name's there. I don't know who the guy is. I never saw him before. So anyway, to go forward is that I was signed for the task force for a month and a half, pulled off patrol. And they, and this drug bust went from San Francisco down to Palo Alto in part of San Jose. So one morning at 6 a.m, 5 counties kicked doors. And I was like, I was like a backup guy, and went in. And we got $150,000, a couple pounds of coke out of someplace in Foster City. And then about 2 weeks later, they found out they didn't find all the coke, and it ended up being put in as insulation behind the new houses in Foster City, because Foster City still had some growth. So there was a lot of new construction. So they bought these properties, built a house, they put the coke inside as insulation. So we ended up finding more after that. But it was $30 million, the largest cocaine bust in Northern California history at the time. But it was involved with the gym. And so it was really like, wow,
Oh, for sure. That I remember when you told me that story today, and I was
crazy.
like, that is crazy. Like, you can't make stuff like this up. Like, you
No,
can make it up if you wanted to. Like, and I was just like, wow, like that. It just shows you like that. Like, that's just amazing. And then that's the crazy part about it is you're a police officer, and this is happening. And like you said, what's in it for you, right? Like, I mean, you're right across from the gym, and everything's so close. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to be part of that either. I mean, I totally get why you were like, what's in this for me? Like, this is not good.
Yeah, and the thing is that the steroid thing and everything, if you had a Gold's Gym, there's going to be steroids. Okay, I'm sorry. That's the way it is. It's always been that way. I told you earlier, is even we ordered apparel in the old days, and it was, you can, like I said, go ahead and interview anybody. I'm not being Jose Canseco on the book Juiced. Okay, I'm not ratting out all these guys took steroids, because I know who didn't. And I admit, I'm the first guy to admit I took them. Everybody took them. It was just nobody. A lot of us are still here. I'm 62. Okay, so, but it's like anything, moderation. Okay, and a lot of guys are moderate, and a lot of guys weren't. And when you get an apparel order in a box, yay big, and there's a sheet, 2 pages, and it has vitamins, but also lists the anabolic steroids if you wanted to order some.
Wow.
And that's how it was back in the 80s. And so who are you going to blame? I mean, so we never sold it. I was a cop and everything else, but guys took them, and guys had their own. Guys went to Mexico, but it was all over the place, and it's more prevalent now. You look at Major League Baseball and stuff, they got ways to mask these things. They do other things. But you know what? It puts butts in the seats. The wrestlers, more yoked you are. You go back to the Ultimate Warrior we talked about. I mean, these guys have phenomenal physiques.
Right, yeah, like, and that I remember when I was younger too, that I was always asking my doctor, because I wanted to be like, back when you were that young, you were watching wrestling, you wanted to be Hulk Hogan, you wanted to be the Ultimate Warrior. And I remember saying that, I was telling you earlier, that I was going to my doctor all the time going, I can't, doesn't matter how much I lift, doesn't matter how much calories I'm packing on me, I can't get that big. Like, and my doctor back even in the day, he was telling me, he's like, that's not natural what you're looking at. These guys are not natural. They are doing steroids. And I would defend Hulk Hogan back then. I'd be like, no, he's doing it. He's saying
everybody did it.
Yeah, it's like, no, he's taking his vitamins, saying his prayers, drinking his milk. And my doctor said, yeah, that may be true, but he's also injecting himself with some stuff. So that's crazy. So it was really back when you were running your gym. Like, it wasn't like they were easy to get, is what you're saying. If you knew where to look, if
Oh
you
yeah,
wanted them, you could
yeah,
get them. And all of these athletes, no, I shouldn't say all. Don't let me blanket statement. That's
right.
bad. But a
That's
lot of them
okay.
were taking it, and it was just part of the bodybuilding business, the sport business, and it was also probably used to help recover these athletes, correct, when they had injuries and
Oh
stuff like
sure.
that.
Oh, you know what? You hit on a major point. You know, I I was speaking. Paul, Mr. Wonderful came in one day. We're talking, hanging out, and I said, "How many days on the road this year?" You know, and he says something like 245 or something. You know, and if there's 245 on the road, you're wrestling every other day because you can fly from here to there in 4 hours. And the way they get beat up, and it's for our entertainment. So these people, whether it's Bonds or Clements or the wrestlers or bodybuilders, you know what? It's like I always relate to like rock and roll. Yeah, they all smoked weed, dropped acid, did whatever they did, but you know what? Wow, the '60s, '70s music, and you know what? That was for entertainment. So who are you to go ahead and go back there and say, hey, these guys took this and that? Um, and you know what? The recovery on the steroids is huge. I mean, the baseball, 162 games a year.
Wow.
Football is a short season to get banged up, but wrestling to me is, yeah, you heal up. I mean, I broke a finger one time playing semi-pro football, and I was on the juice, and that finger was healed up in 3 days. I broke it, literally.
Wow. So yeah, I can definitely, and it's like you said, these wrestlers, they're on the road. Like the back in those days, they were doing
Oh,
grueling schedules. Like it,
oh
I
my
mean,
God.
yeah,
Oh,
and I was part. I like, and I told people earlier. That's how I even got my name, Crypt Rick. Was I was a manager for it, like a local independent wrestling, nothing huge like WWE or anything. But when people, I understand why wrestlers get upset when they say that people call it fake,
oh
or because it's,
no.
yeah, it may be predetermined, the winners in that, but the beatings these guys take, and I only
Oh,
saw it on a local level. These guys took beatings, and those mats are hard, people. I like to tell you, I want to tell you, they're
mm-hmm.
not soft like you think. And so I can understand why they're doing steroids. It's almost like they had to keep that schedule up that the
No,
WWE
you
was wanting them to keep up with. Like 320 days a year, 300
oh,
days a year is insane to me.
you know what? I mean, I'll tell you what, because I knew these guys, and even when we were kids, and it seems it's animated, let's say, right? But I saw these guys come in, and I wouldn't see them afterwards, but maybe they were in Minnesota 2 nights ago wrestling in St. Paul. And I'd see them and come in, man. I'd see their arms taped up. You didn't see that on television, okay? And you hear them like, oh man, it'd be like this, and flying, when you got a 250, 280 pound guy flying off the turnbuckle onto a folding table and it breaks,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no padding. And even if they pre-crack the table, which they do, you're still going to hit the concrete at 8 feet away, 8 feet up. I mean, you put anybody out there over 40 years old, they're going to the hospital in traction. And so, you know what? That's for entertainment. And you know what? Like Jimmy Snuka. I mean, when he used to go up there on the ropes like this, Superfly Jimmy Snuka. I mean, they said one time he got up 12 feet in the air.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then you
and
know what? You're right. Those mats, they're not soft. They just give a little bit.
exactly. Yeah, I know. I only reason I know that is because I helped build them for
Yeah, there
Brian.
you
Like,
go.
yeah, I know what they put into them, and everybody's like, oh,
Yeah,
they're soft and they're padded. I'm like, no, you're looking at plywood and a little mat. That's
yeah,
what they're landing on. And
yep.
so I've always admired wrestlers, and especially after I saw it behind the curtain, I
Oh,
really
yeah,
admired what they went through. So
sure.
what I wanted to ask though is, after the what you've done so much, like, I mean, it's like, God, I could talk to you for hours and hours. That's why I'm going to break this up and do a second part. If you That'd be great if you would come back maybe for a second or third,
Sure. Oh, no
because
problem.
yeah, you've done so much. But what, like, you've done bounty hunting, you were like, what happened after the gym? Like, what kind of led into that? Like, what happened after the gym? Where did that kind of lead you? Like, what was the next stage that you kind of that you went into? Was it the bounty hunting? Was it a private investigator? Kind of like walk us through what happened after that.
I sold the gym to the family, and I left. I left the police department in '89, and I moved to Arnold, California. And because I was a hunter and a fisherman, I was an avid fisherman. I used to tie my own flies as a kid, but really got into hunting. Just love the outdoors. Just want to get out of the Bay Area, man. Like you live up in the mountain, it's beautiful. And I had some money from selling the gym. So, and I bought a house, I sold a house and bought a house up there, and it was all reasonable. And I had a view of the mountains. I lived in the trees, and um, uh, I decided to build a spec house because I had this money. So I built a spec house, sold it. And I met a guy who was a GS-16 with the CIA. He lived across the street. He just moved up there, and quiet guy, bookwormish, nice guy. And he wanted me to hire his kid. And I hired a general and myself. And we built a spec house, and I sold it. But we became good friends, and I had a little money, and he had some money. And he was actually, his name was John Eklund, genius. He was a GS-16 with the company. He won the Fitzgerald Award. You can look it up, which is the highest award for a civilian in the government. And he's the first CIA agent to win it. If you look at the company he's with, it's huge. I didn't know all this really, and I'm till now a lot of ways. But his wife became friends. So January of 1990, we bought a country club called Sequoia Woods Country Club in Arnold. There's three of us. So John and I put the money up, and then we took our real estate agent and we backed his commission into a down payment. So we bought the country club for 1.8 million. So the commission was about 1.5 or about 150,000. We had enough down payment. They carried the note. So I was in the country club business for a couple of years. A lot of people don't know that. And it was great. Well, during that time, I'd met a couple of people, a guy named Ron Burnsworth, who was a bail bondsman. He was a member. And this guy had dough, man. I mean, and I'd seen bail bondsmen when I was a cop. They used to post bonds at police departments. These guys always drove Jaguar. I mean, I was like, where do these guys get their money? So I got in the bail bond business after I sold the country club, and I went and built my own bail bond business, and I started doing very well. I had a pretty good reputation as a cop in San Mateo County and all that. And then I got, since I'm an ex-cop, I'll do my own bounty hunt. And guys do jump bond. I mean, I don't care who you are. And I found it really easy. And it wasn't my cop work. It was probably I was like the best hide and seek kid when I was a little kid. It goes back to, watching combat in the 60s and Vic Morrow and, shooting the toy gun. I mean, that's how we grew up in the 60s. So, we were, I look at all my friends growing up in the 60s, man, half became cops. I mean, it was just, it's going to be cops and robbers was fun when I was a cop. And I wouldn't want to do it now. So I got in the bail bond business and this and that, and became a pretty good bounty hunter. My reputation came pretty soon. I get a call from a guy I'd seen on 60 Minutes named Dan Quaylon, best bounty hunter I ever saw. This is before it was popular. 60 Minute special. They followed him around in Fresno, and I'd done that for about 12 years. And 1996, 7, they came up. They wanted to do a television series called Bounty Hunters. So my reputation preceded me, and they invited 10 of the best bounty hunters in California to this meeting in Fresno with this production company, and they did the show, and it became Bounty Hunters. And it was a big deal. I was on a Maury Povich show one time, and we were drawing 1 million people a week, and we were on after Mad TV and on Fox in the Bay Area. We had good time slots. So my reputation preceded me, and I got into the PI business, and I ended up working some big cases, led to the Yosemite case. So, when I left the police department, I didn't want to be a cop again, but I saw entrepreneurship, and I just kind of fell into, when I was bounty hunting in the 90s, there was no rules. It was like Midnight Run with De Niro. You throw guys in the trunk. You can't violate a guy's civil rights. You can't throw him in the trunk of a car. So what I did was using the show, and we went second season. And I was at a lot of venues and television things and radio shows. And I became the field producer, second year Bounty Hunters. I want to be behind the camera. I don't want to be in front, because I saw I could do good and we could change the laws of bounty hunting. So I took me being on the national show and went ahead and had the California bail bounty hunting laws changed, where bounty hunters now had to be trained. They couldn't be ex-bikers and killers, and there was no rules. So I organized that and became Assembly Bill 243 in California. It was the first bounty hunting rules in the United States.
Wow, see, that's something I don't think a lot of people know. So back in the day when you first started getting into bounty hunting, there was no rules. Like, were you saying that anybody could have been, back in those days, anybody was a bounty hunter? Like, you didn't have to pass did you have to pass a test? Did you have to have a license?
No.
Or did you just say I'm a bounty hunter?
No, it goes back to 1848 Taylor versus Tainter, where you can go ahead and basically bounty hunt and pick a guy up even on the Sabbath. On the Sabbath, remember, it was dead or alive in the Wild West days, and so nothing really had changed in some ways. And I had a bail agency That's about my fourth. I mean, no, maybe not. I gotta say this, Rick. Maybe my second year in, and I mean, I hired old tough guy biker guys and stuff. They're not trained. They're not trained as police officers. And the biggest thing I presented to the California Bail Association in Sacramento when we passed the law was that how many out there are you are cops or just it doesn't mean you're a bad business guy, but you're not trained to go after a guy who just robbed the bank and now you bail him out and and you got him on bond. You're gonna have to go arrest him and or violate his bond and bring him back to jail. And you're a bail bondsman, not a cop. And this guy just shot a bank up. So you have to have people go after these bounties as if they're trained as well as cops, because you're dealing with the same guy the cops just put in jail. So that was my point, and it makes sense,
Yeah, no.
And so that's how I got the law passed. Yeah, training came in. You had to train, and then the licensing came in for kind of like bounty hunters after that.
Wow, that's great that you got that actually brought in
Yeah.
then, because it really, like when you say it was like the Wild West, you're not
Oh,
joking back then, like
huge.
and that's so like see when I think of bounty hunters, like and I'm sure you've got this from a lot of people, like that's who I think of, Dog the Bounty Hunter. They blew this guy up on TV. He's been
Yeah.
around for a long time, and so that's what I think of when I think of a bounty hunter, and that like I mean I think a lot of people do, and so um like when you were a bounty hunter, like was there any crazy cases that you can tell us about, like when you were a
Oh,
bounty hunter, of people, like how often do people, like this is a good question that I wanted to know and I'm glad I remembered. How often do people run and not come back, kind of thing, like when you bail them out and they're supposed to be back at a certain, keep in touch or whatever, how often do they not keep in touch, or do most of them do keep in touch with you?
well, you know what? Some you want them to keep in touch, or maybe a phone call once in a while, depending on the bond, the crime, the chance of them running on your bond, the amount of money, the collateral, what's secured against the bond. See, when you go into bail bond business and you want your own company, they don't just hand you bonds, okay? And the bonds are registered with the state of California, whatever state. Is that if you're going to be a bondsman on your own company, you have to put up real property, because the law in California is that if they miss court, whatever court date it is, and they're out on bond, period, in 165 days or 6 months, you have to go ahead and bring them to court, or they will go ahead and pull a summary judgment. And so it's 50 grand, because bondsmen have this buff account where a percentage of the bond goes in and protect them. If it's beyond the buff account, they'll take your family home, the bond company.
Wow.
So you become aggressive and make sure you write really good applications and know where the hell this guy's at. Excuse me, who's his family members, whatever. And just like a credit application, man, social security number, everything. And we do quick claim deeds and we do title checks and do everything to make sure if I'm going to give you 150 grand to get out of jail, I don't want you going to Tijuana and I can't extradite you back in 6 months. I'm paying 150 grand. And that's happened. I never had a problem. I've only had to pay off one bond and the family paid it on 5 grand. The guy went back to Korea on his family, and the bond went to summary judgment. The family paid it. I watched my people, man. My family's house is on the line. So if I do something greed for a few grand and just want the cash in there for the premium of 10%, so $150,000 bond, you get 15 grand. You'll net about 13 on it. It's good money.
Right.
The guy that doesn't own shit. Is that what I would do is I would do those bonds because we're so good, took such good information. This guy wouldn't get across the street before we take him back to jail. So we did really well. That's why I'm very humble, but being a really good really good bounty hunter. And I did bounty hunt for biggest companies, and I did bounty hunt on the biggest crimes, the biggest cheaters in Nevada's gaming most wanted. These guys would skip, and then you couldn't find. I took the dog cases with 2 weeks left, and I'd find them. But you know what? It's a lot of. I think it's a gift for me, but also it's just really knowing human nature.
Right.
Everybody has.
I agree. Like that's what I would think too, and I would always thought that if you want to be a good bounty hunter, you have to be able to get into the head of the criminals and know you have, and it's probably a lot of who you know too. Like on the streets and stuff like that. That's huge too. And if they can trust you. Yeah, but I never realized that you guys have to put the money up front for them. Like so, and if they do skip, then you're covering that bill like that. That I'm sure there's a lot of bail bondsmen in that go out of business really quick, right? If you don't vet the people that you're helping out, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, you're not putting the money up. You're putting what's called a surety bond. It's like say a mechanics bond, a performance bond.
Okay.
So if somebody screws up, you're going to pay that bond, but the bond's backed by a security as a property or real, big business or something. So we don't put the money up actually, but if that bond goes to summary judgment, they have a count with X amount of money, and my house is leaned against the leaned with the bail bond company, so they can go foreclose on my house. So they're going to get the money out of it. Yeah, the bond company is going to make sure they're in an equitable position when they put you in the business that you're writing these bonds for X amount, and they make big money on them. But if you screw up, they come back and they're going to take everything you got. And that's why bounty hunting, yeah, and that's why bounty hunters get in trouble. And there's all these, when I did the Maury Povich show, I mean, I couldn't believe it. And it was like Jerry Springer even back then. I was sent back to New York with a couple of bounty hunting teams. I was field producer, and the second half of the show, they wanted to make like Maury Povich, man. There was some guy up there yelling at this guy, but they brought this family on, where some bounty hunter arrested a family member at like their son's funeral. I mean, I would never do that. Who cares what the law is? And so that created a big stir. And then, that's what makes us look like crap. Bounty hunters are pretty good guys. They got a job to do, and they also, it doesn't cost the public a penny because there's no taxpayer money into it's a private business. So bail bondsmen with their bounty hunters are watching these criminals that that harm society for free, because it's a contract, it's a business deal. And if they skip, you throw them in jail and you take their parents home, screw them. And that's, they know that. So you know what? This, like, now we won't get into politics now, but this getting rid of bail thing is a really huge mistake as far as law enforcement and our safety goes in the United States. It's huge to get rid of bail bondsmen, right? Because we make money on finding people or bailing them out and helping them. But you know what? When you're vested financially, you're going to do a better job than the government, man.
Right, and I actually, we didn't talk about this. So I definitely, now you've left the door open, I have to ask you: is the government trying to take away bail bondsmen and
sure,
bounty hunting and all that? Or is that all of that they're trying to get rid of? Why are they doing that? I don't understand why they would want to do that.
Well, they're trying to get rid of private enterprise. You always hear about the big three or automotive or whatever. And look at Tucker. The Tucker automobile was wow. And they did everything to get rid of him, and it's the same thing now. It's that the mom and pop businesses. My hometown San Francisco makes me sad. These restaurants have been there since my grandfather was there in the 30s, and they're closing up. Never would have happened. And same with the bail bonds is that no bail, let them out, and then what happens is that the cops aren't going to keep up with that, and they're trying to go ahead and the society thing, they're trying to diminish population, whatever people believe, but incarceration, and you're going to see now is incarceration is going to come back. Because their vaccines or whatever, and people are trying to get rid of, kill us with whatever it is that incarceration is the next thing to death. So they create more laws, and that the $900 at Walgreens, that 18 of them closed in San Francisco, and they won't file a case till it's $900 worth of stuff, is now going to go backwards. And bail's the same way. There's no money in the government for bail, but there's money in incarceration.
Right.
So if you get rid of bail, you got to incarcerate them. And that's going to come back to that, the taxpayers and everything. So I don't know what's going to happen to bail. I've been at it for a long time, but I do watch it. It put a lot of good bail bondsmen out of business. I'll tell you, it's terrible, just like everything else.
Yeah, and it's true what you say too, that prisons are a big business now. Like as soon as they privatized them, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
So they want to fill them up as quick as they can. And then, but I think them getting rid of bail bondsmen and all of that they're gonna regret that if they ever do.
Oh, huge!
They're gonna regret that. I think it's gonna come back and bite them right in the ass eventually.
Yeah.
And but is there any? I definitely have to ask this. Was there anybody that you had a really hard time getting back? Like they ran out on their bond, or you could, and they gave you a good run. I always wondered, like, if there's one that you can tell me about that really gave you a run for your money. I'm just curious.
Oh, no. So, hey, can we take a minute?
You can take a minute, all you want, friend.
Hey, I got to take a leak. You going to take a leak?
No, I'm not, but I'll chat with my friends. I'll chat here. You go right ahead, and then
I'll be right back.
Alrighty.
Hey, Rick, you know what? I love your interview, man. It's really cool.
Thank you so much. I love having you here.
Oh, no. The questions are good. Yeah, no, we'll get back to that. I got a couple for you.
All right, perfect. Well, there you go, friends. What an amazing interview. I knew this was going to be a great one, guys. Great talking with them, and I've been excited to get him on the show. And as I was saying at the beginning, I am definitely going to definitely going to have him back on for a couple more episodes because, as I was saying at the beginning, I can't fit this man's whole life into a couple hours. He's done so much, and I'm just kind of glossing over and hitting a few points in this interview just to get you guys, kind of know where we're coming from here. But I mean, it's amazing. You got a man that was a police officer, and then he's a gym owner and meeting a lot of, famous people and in the bodybuilding world, in the wrestling business, in the sports world. Amazing. And then, if that's not enough, then he goes into being a bail bondsman and a bounty hunter. It's like, wow. It's just it's crazy to me. It's crazy. And when I was reading I'm still, like I said, reading through the book, and it's just a page turner. Like, you're like, this is so interesting. And I knew it'd be great to get him on. I'm just really enjoy speaking with him. And, I think if you guys do pick up the book, you're really going to enjoy it. It's we haven't even got into the really cool stuff that a lot of people want to talk about, but I figured, as I was saying to Steven before the show, I wanted people to get to know him and that before we just jump into the Yosemite stuff and that. So that'll be for probably the next interview, like when I get him on again. But it's just amazing having him on here, and I'm really enjoying it, learning a lot too. I think that getting rid of bail bondsmen, I don't know. I didn't hear anything about that, but to hear that is incredible. Like, that's incredible. I think that's a bad mistake, in my opinion, because like everything the government does, it's going to come back and bite them in the ass eventually. So I hope that it doesn't pass. But what an exciting life. I'm telling you, I was just telling everybody, Steven, that your life is so exciting and interesting. And I was just telling them, like, you're a police officer, you're a gym owner, you're bodybuilding, you're doing all of that. And then you decide after that you're going to be, then you get into a country club thing you were talking about, which I didn't know anything about that. So that threw me I was like, wow, that's another thing you've done. And then you get into into bail bondsman and bounty hunting. And before you had to take a break there, I just wanted to ask you. I was asking you actually, who were some of the people that gave you a run for your money and gave you a hard time getting them back?
The hardest bounty wasn't the Yosemite case. It was I'll say this loosely. We're gypsy. That's not PC anymore. It's called Roma. Okay. So anyway. But I'm just going to say gyps for now. We'd gotten a bail bond called, bail a guy out of San Francisco County Jail. My mom was a bail agent for me, matter of fact, in the Bay Area. And the guy name was Barry Dillon. And we posted the bond. It wasn't that much. It was $5,000. It was out of Idaho, and which means is that when you work for a surety company, they have several bondsmen everywhere. So instead of us driving to Idaho, they can post the bond there, and the money's exchanged. So my mom gets the money from the family in San Francisco. He bails out of Idaho, and we get $100 counterfeit bill, $100. So anyway, I said, "Shit, this is terrible." So I try to get a hold of the family. Nobody's answering the phone. Counterfeit. You know what? I call my partner, Rick James. God rest his soul. He's my bounty hunter partner in the book and everything. We go after him. So I think we hit Reno. And he goes, "Tell me about this guy." I said, "Oh, blah, blah, gypsy." He goes, "What?" Oh my God. I thought it was a myth. And we chased this guy. We made overall 5 or 6 trips to Seattle, hired the best bounty hunters up there to help us, everything else. And we could not find this guy for whatever. Then we found out he was wanted possibly in a murder of an elderly couple out of Jerome, Idaho, using a fireman's grub axe. Excuse me. Wow. And he was finally identified. We put so much pressure on the gypsy family that he actually turned him in. And that was the toughest one. But part of that is that the guy I was bounty hunting with in Seattle, who was familiar with the gypsies, turned out to be, I befriended him, everything else. And we started doing bounties together in Vegas, where he's from, in Seattle. He even stayed at my house. Big black guy named Donovan Owsley, pretty good bounty hunter, but things were happening a little bit weird stuff. And it turned out I get a call one day, and I hadn't seen this guy in months, right? I mean, 8 months maybe. His family called me. He's in jail up in King County on $50,000. Okay, now I bound him with this guy to go find the gypsies and everything. and we were friends. And 50 grand in Seattle is like $250,000 in California. It's huge, you know.
Wow.
And so I found out, to make a long story short, is that when we were doing bounties with him, even later, and I remember we were in a really bad part of Seattle, they called Hollywood, and it's like tenements. It looks like what's it in Chicago? Something Greens or whatever, the total project. And he went into a member apartment or two, and he'd come out, and the guy's in there, and he'd have all this money afterwards. So he's rolling over these guys. So he'd get a case for a bounty in Seattle. We were helping him while we were chasing the gypsy. We were helping him on his bounties at the time.
Right.
And he was going in and rolling him over for drugs, dope, money, and everything. So he gets bailed out of Seattle. I posted the bond. I only got half the premium, no collateral. I knew his parents. I mean, I was at their house. I worked with him in Vegas for over a month, and I trusted the family. And it turned out he was one of the biggest drug dealers in Las Vegas. Oh my God. And we found out he was rolling over. He'd go in to arrest somebody in a house for a bounty for the bail bondsman, and they would end up paying him off, and he'd take drugs. And he was selling all the meth and speed to the strippers in Vegas. And he jumps bond on me, my friend, for 50 grand. Oh my God, we couldn't find him. He had Vegas wrapped up. He lived in North Las Vegas, all the gangs, everything. And so we made 3 trips down there, my partner and I. And I came home, and we flew in and out of Sacramento because he was at Angels Camp and I was a little further up. And I turned the TV on. It was 11 o'clock at night. I'm half tired. I just got off a plane like 4 hours ago. And they have this MSNBC special, Cats team in Las Vegas. And the Cats is CATS, Criminal Apprehension TS teams. It's a conglomerate of FBI, Las Vegas Metro, Henderson, Boulder PD. And what it was, there's so many people moving into Vegas in the 90s that they had to develop a special felony warrant squad. And they said 5,000 people a month moving to Vegas. So people coming in, they got every crime in. This is even after really the mob's running it. And so they premiered this Sergeant Alphonse Cervantes is in charge of the Cats team for Vegas. So the next day, I call him and I mentioned Donovan Owsley, and he says, where the fuck is he at? I went, what? He goes, he's our number one guy, our number one in Vegas. And I got this guy who's a friend of mine. I got him on 50 grand out of Seattle. Oh my God. So I ended up flying down there the next day with Rick, and we hooked up with the FBI and everything else. And we went after him. Oh my God. We couldn't find him. Everything. So finally I told him, we had meetings and everything. And I said, I'll talk him in. And they're like, you won't talk him in. I go, talk him in. And he trusted me, and he knew I was on him. I called the house. This is no secret. And back then in Nevada, you had 90 days to surrender him, not 6 months. Okay. So we had to get him, and we did. And we set him up and got him in the car, and it was a big mess. I even had to set up fake plane tickets with my cousin, who's a travel agent, because I said I was going to fly him back to Seattle, told his family that. But the law is that if you get arrested in Nevada from anywhere, you have to see a magistrate before you leave. So he didn't know that law. And so the tickets were cancelable too. But we were at the house, and he's at the table. I said, I got to take you in. Like, brother, even when we walked out, his kids, his family were hugging. I said, I won't handcuff you in front of your family. And I didn't. But his mother went in the bedroom and called Southwest Airlines to make sure her son's name was on the ticket. I swear to God, that's how, so the family was involved, and that was the hardest ever bounty. Chasing a bounty hunter that you knew and lived with and bounty hunter with is the hardest thing in the world. Like Ernest Hemingway said, the most dangerous animal to hunt is a human.
Right.
You're a bounty hunter. You got to chase a bounty hunter who knows your gig, knows your whole role and everything. Man, let me tell you, Crip Rick, that was the toughest.
Oh, for sure. I couldn't even imagine. And that would make it hard too, is what you just said, is that he knows your tactics. He knows what you're, so you got to kind of outthink him like that. Yeah. That, and then the fact that you knew, that would be tough. I can tell it was tough on you. And
that was a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just crazy. And to think that was a fellow bounty hunter that,
yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Amazing. I've always wondered, it must really, when I think of a bounty hunter, I just think you people like you that are that have done bounty hunting, or I don't know, man, you guys it must be brave, because you're dealing with dangerous people. Like, I'm sure you're not always dangerous people. I mean, but you do have the odd case where you're tracking down dangerous people and, capable of anything. You already know that they're have no problem breaking a law. So you really don't know what you're walking into. Like, is that really hard? Is it get stressful doing that job? I've always wondered if that's a job that is hard to keep like separate. Like, when you go home and you're trying to keep it separate from your everyday life, kind of, or like your family life, and that is it something that wears on you over the years as you're a bounty hunter? Like, if you know what I mean?
No, you know what? Not even close. For my speaking for myself, but I speak for a lot of bounty hunters out there. To tell you the same thing. None of them are ex cops. Some are whatever former cops. But there should be some training involved. But no, it's not like Donnie Brasco and with the FBI and 7 years and can't see his family. No, nothing like that.
Right.
Because I think it's like hide and seek, man. And the thing is that it's like when your car's repoed. You're behind the payments, man. It's no surprise when the guy shows up with the tow truck. Same here. You know what? If they don't show up for court, game on. And now it's cat and mouse. But they don't travel too far from their comfort zone. That's why Candler with the Yosemite book, what people read is that, that's the first guy I had to chase ever in my life. I mean, I had a guy in New York every once in a while from California, but nobody runs to Alabama. They run away from Alabama, And so that threw me off. I mean, so that's human nature. And I mean, I don't know how many bounties I did. I'm not like the dog did 5 million. I think maybe I did 400 bounties in my life, but they were all solid, good case. I didn't take every case that came across my desk. I mean, I would say by fourth year in bail business that over half my bounties were for other companies. I had no bounties. I had maybe 5 skips a year. All my bounty hunting was for other people.
Really? And it's kind of cool what you said now that you broke it down like that. That it is a cat and mouse game, and if they do run, they know you're coming. So that's what you're saying. Like, it's a cat and mouse game.
Sure.
They know you're coming, and it's still the game's on. Like, and that's a great way to put it, and that's really cool. And that's probably what attracts a lot of people to being a bounty hunter, right? Is that they enjoy the hunt, like the chase.
Yeah. Oh, it is. You know what I mean? I was an avid outdoor. I mean, I was a bull hunter. I got an elk one year, and I've got a bear in Idaho one year. I don't hunt anymore, but it was like, even though I hunted game, and we ate it, and we did. I hunted for 40 years. But to chase a human, it's just that one more. It's that one extra step. I mean, there's not a point where you got them in your sights and you got them and you're 400 yards away and they give up. Even though it's the hardest hunt for 10, you might have to steer for all season. But with these guys, it's also you get more. You know what you're after, and you just you judge, from their family to the charges and everything else. And what's the guy going to do? 6 months or go back for 5 years. Right. You got to look what ups the stakes on this. And we've had guns pulled on us. We've had shotguns racked behind the door. Guys going out the window. Had a guy. I mean, that pisses you off. But we had to back off. He put his 2-year-old baby up against us to shield himself from us coming in. You know what? Wow. Okay, it's not worth it. Wow. But the desperate thing like that, and But bounty hunting the experience is incredible because you don't have the power of the Motorola radio to call for backup. If you call for backup in the Bay Area, man, you could have multi-agencies there in 3 minutes and 100 cops. Man, you're on your own. And even in certain states, mostly California, it's really funny. California, we got less cooperation from law enforcement than I did if I went to Wyoming, Nevada, South Dakota. The gun laws are loose. Even New York in a lot of ways. California, we'd be on a bounty and somebody complained, some white guys running around a black neighborhood with guns. We'd always check in, but it's a disturbance. And you know what? California, the law enforcement looks at it a little differently. There's cops that, just like with the PI business, there's cops that, look down a little bit upon the guy that left the police department early and became a PI or whatever. You know what? Maybe he did it for whatever. It's the same with bounty hunting at the time, but overall, law enforcement is pretty good about it, but it's like you just call the shots. Nobody wants to get hurt.
Right. And so I just understand what you were saying. Like, and I'm sure this isn't the case everywhere, but when you're a bounty hunter or a bail bondsman, and that, are the police mostly apt to help you, or do they kind of not like, are they kind of like always going against you and letting you go on your own?
Well,
Like, and I'm sure it's probably, you're going to say like it's different in every area, but I'm just wondering if the police actually try to help
right.
you, or are they kind of like you're on your own kind of thing?
Well, mostly on your own, which I liked, is because when later on, and like I said, I bounty hunted for about 14, 15 years, but I had a bail
Wow.
agency for 12. Um, as the years progressed, it was more you got to be on your own or we're going. So in other words, the liability for you to go in with an officer from a county or city or jurisdiction, and there's a firefight, and because you shot first or whatever, the cops, you can't, they're trained and don't know who you are, so it's either their call or your call. Early on, it was always our call, and it would stand out in the street. You know what I mean? And
Really?
so every jurisdiction is different, but I can tell you now is you're probably going to be more that you either going or we going. Because sometimes you alert them to the warrant, because a lot of our bounties become warrants. They didn't know about it. They have to actually help, but it doesn't mean they have to let you in through the door with them. You know?
Oh, I see. That's really interesting. Like, see,
Yeah,
there's
they,
so
you know
many
what?
things that people don't think about
Sure.
and it's amazing talking to you about this, because I'm learning so much about the whole thing. Because, like I said, the only thing I ever had to go on for bounty hunting was Dog the Bounty Hunter that I watched on TV, and so yeah, and anything that's on TV, they're gonna glam it up, and
Sure.
so that's why I was really excited to talk to you about this whole aspect of your life, because like I wanted to, like how much of it on that you see on TV is real, how much of it is put on. Like I did ask you, and I want you to let people know what you think, and just in your opinion, because I asked you that right away, and I'm sure you've had people ask you this before. Do you think Dog the Bounty Hunter is? He says he's one of the greatest bounty hunters in the whole world, and blah blah blah. Is he good? Is Dog good at what he does?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, very good bounty hunter. It's just as a human being, I don't really care for him.
Oh,
I did
okay.
I did a, I did a case. I want to say about 2014, 2013. Hired by a group of attorneys where Dog and the family came over to San Francisco Bay Area and to arrest the guy on a warrant and a bail jumping thing. And A&E is owned by NBC. So when you're on television, if you don't sign a waiver, they have to pixelate your face out. Okay.
Okay.
And what they did was they went after the guy, they got him, but they had all these guys sprawled out. The cops were there, it was a big deal. And the client that hired us to the attorneys was laying on the ground in handcuffs, who was not the suspect, but they did not pixelate his face out. He's a great guy. I played football with a guy named Matt Fulner. And it's ironic because my old semi-pro football team, San Mateo County Outlaws, which was a police team, was the whole team that Dog the Bounty was going after one of their players. So it was kind of a natural. It was really interesting. And it happened around Daly City, San Bruno, San Francisco border. So our client's on the ground, but they didn't pixelate the face out with the little bubble things. And so he all of a sudden in the town of Pacifica, south of San Francisco, they had posters on like telephone poles. Matt Fulner's a dirtbag. He's a criminal drug. He didn't do anything. So he filed a
Wow.
lawsuit against A&E and NBC. And it's kind of sad because San Mateo County, Superior Court found it no cost for the suit. I was kind of upset, but in the pretense of that, I had about 3 months of investigating Dog the Bounty Hunter. So I was hired to investigate him. And what I found out, and it's common knowledge, is that the conspiracy for murder 2 years. He had almost 17 arrests for burglaries and armed robberies. Yeah, he had a tough life and everything like that. And he became a bounty hunter. And yes, he caught in 2002. He caught Andrew Luster, the Max Factor
Right.
rapist.
Right.
Listen, great bounty hunter, but he knew not to take. You can't take anybody out of Mexico. I don't care if you're a Mexican nationalist or a gringo from San Diego. You have to go before the Mexican magistrate, and he knew that, so they arrested him for kidnapping. That became Dog the Bounty Hunter show.
Right.
Great bounty hunter. I don't like him as a human being.
Right. Well, no, that's honest. You're being fair, and that. But I had to ask you because like
Sure.
that. I just remember that when you do hear him in interviews and stuff like that. Like, I mean, everybody's like, oh, he's, and I find a lot of people, like, it's like they either love him or hate him. It's like there's not
Yeah.
really a middle ground. Like, you either really. And I found his show entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I
Oh,
really did.
absolutely. I still watch it every once in a while. It's a great
Right.
show.
Yeah, and
Sure.
it's
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
and so I get that part of it, but it's just I had to ask you because I just want because you're in the business, you done it, and I just want to know if like because he toots his own horn saying how great he was, so
Yeah.
I just want to see as a you as a bounty hunter, do you think he was great? So that's cool. You're honest. So I mean, you
Oh
can't beat
yeah,
that.
no, great. The thing was is that he was a bully, and when I was doing the case for our plaintiff on the lawsuit against A&E and Dog and NBC, was I contacted PIs, and one was in Arizona, had done a case where they were on a bounty in Arizona or something, and Leland, his son, jumped over the counter and beat this motel manager because he wouldn't give up the room the guy was staying in. And you know what? That's the kind of stuff they did.
Wow.
Like I told you earlier, previously to this interview, is that I had friends of mine from the old bounty hunting days with television that shot Dog the Bounty Hunter. He's about 5'7". I'm not cutting the guy down, but he said they always had to have the cameras angled up so he looks taller. But they said it was a wild and Dog, and he took control. He took control, and he's that kind of guy. But it was a pain in the butt to shoot with the guy.
Right.
But to go over and beat up a guy because he won't give you information. And that's the stories I heard when I was the investigator on the case against the Dog.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure like it's like with anything else, right? There's an ethical way to do things when you're
Sure.
even if you're a bounty hunter and stuff like that, which I think is what like it's just the way to you got to have that, I think. So like I agree with you. There's no need to go if some guy's not giving up the room to go and
Yeah,
jump over the counter and put a beating into the guy like
that's
I mean,
terrible.
yeah, like and so I definitely get that, but that's crazy. Like I mean, what a crazy life you've had, and we haven't even got into like the like half the stuff yet. Like that's the crazy part. Like I'm just thinking like all the stuff you've done, and but I think this is like I said. I think this is probably a great spot to end this interview. I really do because we're kind of leading up to it. We're talking about the bail bondsman, the bounty hunting, and stuff like that. And I think when I get you back on for part 2 of this interview, we can really dig into your book is what I really want to dig into the Yosemite murders and stuff like that. But before you go, like definitely show people your book and that, Stephen. I want people to see do you have your book handy? You can show everybody the
Oh,
book you
sure.
got?
Oh, yeah.
I definitely want people to see it and tell them a little bit about it and give them so this can be like a little sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about in the next interview.
How's it look? Can you see it?
Perfect. Yep, there you go. Ultimate Prey.
Ultimate phrase. So this starts with my being arrested in Mariposa County while, like I said, I was doing bounties for other agencies, and I also was like kind of like a fixture in the bail industry, where if an owner of a bail bond agency got arrested or in trouble with the law, that the state of California can revoke your license temporarily, at least.
Okay.
So you still have to run your business. You can't post bond, even though I could have, but they have a liability if they got a pile of people jump on, right? We all did. Now this guy's in jail, whatever. So I would be hired to go in there and take a look at all the cases and then pick which ones to try to save this guy money. And the surety would hire me because the bondsman can't pay the bond, the surety pays it. So I'm going to talk millions of dollars. I mean, some offices had a couple 100,000, whatever. And so I took over this bondsman. I knew him very well. We used to be friends, not any longer. I hate to say it. And Dennis Wyckoff in Sonora, which is Tuolumne County, California. And so I looked at his cases. He'd gone to jail he was bounty hunting in Tuolumne County, indicted for kidnapping the wrong guy.
Wow.
So this bondsman, if you grab the wrong guy in bounty hunting, they'll indict you for kidnapping in California.
Wow.
And these guys were like twins, man. Rick, I mean, identical twins. He grabbed the wrong brother, but the brothers did it on purpose, of course, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, the cops are kind of didn't like Dennis Wyckoff, and so they arrested him. And he got off eventually, but he was in jail. He was there for a few months, so I had to clean up his liability. So when he got out, we chased this one guy named Cliff Watkins, and it was in Mariposa County. And I posted a couple bonds there. It's 2 counties over from Calaveras to the south, Yosemite. No idea what I was walking into. We do this and that. It's in the book. We leave that town that day. The cops pull us over and said, we approach these guys. I did a cursory search. I broke this guy's neck. Oh no, it didn't happen. I get called that night at home in Murphy's about 9:00. This is Deputy Locke. The guy pulled us over. we're going to send this to the district attorney's office for felony assault. I'm going, what? We gotta be kidding. Fast forward, it cost me $50,000, two PIs, two attorneys, one in San Francisco, the biggest trial attorney, one in Mariposa County, and it was turned out it was a setup. Mariposa County set me up. Even the guy I was chasing, I found out by state parole. What happened was is that if you're on parole, you have to do your urine test, and sometimes you're in county jails. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, and state parole guy's there, and he has a tail on you, so you're his guy, and so his guy was my guy, and our guy was up in Shasta County. I didn't know, and it was for Wyckoff bail bonds. We got him. He's in custody. I called booking, and he said, "Oh yeah, he's under another name, Jimmy Jones." Jimmy Jones was the nephew of a sergeant Mariposa, and Jimmy Jones is a victim I'm being indicted for. Right. Oh my God! So they're saying I broke the neck of the sergeant's nephew, but this guy in Shasta, who is the most wanted guy, I'm chasing, uses the same name. I go up there. This guy named Cliff Watkins, he says, I got nothing to lose. I had my PI with me. We're across the glass on the phone, just like DV. He was telling me his life isn't worth shit, blah, blah, blah. He told me where Mariposa was hiding. You saw the video today, Rick, right?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Like we were talking before the show, and you told me to look into Mariposa County, and I watched a couple videos, and that was a shocking video. That was a shocking video you got me.
This is the reason. This is the reason that I was set up and everything, because I was in the middle of the Mariposa drug trade with the sheriff's department, and this guy Cliff Watkins was their main drug mule. He told me where the sheriff's department was hiding all the dope, man. They were hiding on Lake McClure and Joaquin Murrieta's old cave. I know it sounds animatedly historical, Joaquin Murrieta and Three Finger Jacko. That's where they were hiding it. And that's when he lost on the video where they killed their own deputy. So Mariposa's had this past, and I walked into it just on a bounty. And I know those ideas walking into. And so I got off of it, almost cost my marriage, 50 grand, almost lost my house. West did not revoke my license during that time. Even they don't knew I was right. And so that was 95. And in 1999, I fall into the Yosemite murders and Ultimate Prey as a guy with a bail agency who bailed a guy out who I felt was involved in it. And he was, and it turned out to be one of the biggest murder cases in you know the decade. As a matter of fact, is when this case got hot, Senator Grassley out of Iowa said it's the worst FBI bungle since Ruby Ridge and Waco. That the cover up was that big. Wow. So that's what this book is about, Ultimate Prey. It's a true story behind the Yosemite murders of Carol's son, Julie's son, her daughter, and a friend from Argentina, Silvio Peloso, and how it was covered up and how the FBI covered it up for a long time until I got involved in it. And that's what happened. And the truth is one guy named Kerry Stainer did murder 3 women by himself. And I have the witnesses and everything, and everybody knows it. And that's what the book's about.
Right. It's amazing. And I do, like I kept saying, I've been saying through this whole interview, make sure you pick this book up, guys, because it is amazing. And I will leave links in the description to get right to where you got to go to pick this book up. And that's where I want to continue off too with our second interview that we're going to do. And that's what I want to really focus in on is your book and going through it and this whole Yosemite murder, everything. Like that's where I would definitely want to focus. I just thought it'd be really cool to do our first interview and let people get to know you and kind of all the things you've done in your life and all the experiences you've had. And I think that it just is a really good way to start it, because then we can kind of move it forward and get to the what happened in the book and stuff like that. And I think it's a really good book. I'm going to be reading it again, finishing. I'm going to try to finish it in the next couple of days because it's but it's amazing. And but before I go, I do want to ask you, because when we first started the interview, you were talking about your new business, and you have it right on your shirt there. And I found that's another super interesting thing that you're doing. Yeah. Go ahead and tell people the name, Stephen, and tell everybody what it's about and what you're doing with it and everything. Like, let everyone know.
Hey man, thank you for the opportunity for the pitch.
You're very welcome.
My business is it's Secret Scroll 007. So it's Secret Scroll, the old cartoon Morocco Mole. But when we'll get into this later, but after the book and the podcast I started doing, things started happening. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And about 3 years ago, I was in a hotel room in a little town, and I'd been there for a while, kind of doing some stuff, and things were weird. And I remember coming back and decided I found two hidden spy cameras in the hotel room.
Wow.
And yeah, one was in a clock, and the other one was a towel hanger thing. And so from there, I not much happening and things that happened. But anyway, I started researching this more. I thought maybe I was nuts. Man, I'll tell you what, with Amazon and the technology, cheaper, smaller equipment and everything, these spy cameras are everywhere. So I put two and two together and I developed a business called Secret Squirrel, and it's called the domain or our website. Our website is Secret Squirrel 007. So I was able to secure the domain name. We talked about branding. Is that ironically, when all the COVID hit, and I was doing stagehand work in San Diego for concerts for about a year, and we went out of business first. The COVID hit. I mean, all venues were closed.
Right.
So I took my COVID money, and I bought the equipment, and I researched it, the market material, and I remember the domain name Secret Squirrel. It's $150,000 if you want to buy it. Well, that's the cartoon. Okay, that's a good price. Well, Secret Squirrel 007 domain, so secretsquirrel007.com was $12,500. Well, I'm thinking of names. I'm developing the business. I know you can see all the spy cameras, hospitals. It's a really bad thing going out there with all the infiltration of spy devices. One day I look, Rick, and it's Secret Squirrel 007. It's $12 a month. I bought it. I nailed it. So that became my branding. So I got the coolest name, and I developed a business. And now we're rolling. We've done about 45 searches in the last year. My very first search in Vegas, I found a spy camera, which is really neat. I haven't found any since, but that's not saying, because every spy camera you found, there's 100 more. But you got the schools, you have the locker rooms, you have motels, hotels, you have boats, yachts, your cars, your house, Airbnbs, hospitals. And if it crosses the whole gamut of all society with spy cameras. So that's what Secret Squirrel is, and that's what I do now.
That's
and,
amazing. And I think
bigger,
it,
yeah.
as you said, with the technology, see, we could do another. I'm telling you, Stephen, that's another show we could do, is just on what you brought up, for real. I mean, I don't think people realize.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people realize with technology. Yeah, technology is a great thing, and I enjoy technology as much as everyone else does. Like I fought, and I did fought. I had like the Alexa, that people get for their house and that.
Yeah.
And I fought that for years, and
Yeah.
because I know that they're listening, and I know that
they
can listen.
are.
They can listen.
The data mining, the algorithms.
Right.
You know what? But you know what? If I'm not saying I'm not a normal guy, but is the normal people just live your life, But if you're doing something, or you're doing podcasts, or you're going against the left or whatever it is, they're going to watch you. They're going to do things. I mean, all that stuff. It's like the data mining I put up on my site. I researched this data mining with these quiz questions on Facebook. And I see 10 million people reacting to what was your favorite color in high school, your dog's first name. Those 10 million people are being data mined. There's a reason. Who puts up a benign question, and who wants, no offense, I mean, I got better things to do, wants to answer those questions. So your favorite dog, your high school sweetheart, what school you went to, blah, blah, blah. And they put it all in the algorithms. And it's the same with the camera thing now. I mean, it's harder to find these cameras. Some of these cameras are the size of a grain of rice. Now, that's CIA, and that camera costs 10 grand, but not that far away from it. For $20
Right.
on Amazon, you can get a spy camera you won't be able to see. You can hide it. And like power adapters for cell phones. And it'll have a SD mini disc in there that has 62 gigabytes of storage, or it has its own IP address, and both. So you can be that could be on the parking lot and halfway line of sight, or up on a Wi-Fi or through Bluetooth. That those cameras have their own IP address. It's no different than a security camera setup. It's really small.
Wow.
They just found one in a cat food box in a store in Ohio. Somebody put a spy camera in a cat food box in a grocery store.
Wow.
And people brought it home and opened it. So was that to spy on employees? I don't know. Bathrooms. They put them in toilet seats. The invasion of privacy, not just the government, but what's driving this too, Rick, is the illegal porn industry.
Right.
They went after Pornhub a while back because people were uploading privacy, intimate stuff
Right.
in hotel rooms, you know? And what they do is that they stream it, and these perverts are on there for $40 a month or $40 a shot. And then as soon as they get their money, they take it off, it's gone. So it's almost TikTok Live or Snapchat where it was, it's on and off, but they make their money. And
Right.
that's also driving the spy camera industry.
Oh, for sure, and that's the scary part. Like I could never go. I would assume if I was going to any hotel room, I was being watched. I
You
would
have
just
to.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
just assume that. I would just be there's cameras in here, and I've
there
always
is.
thought that way. And you make a great point, Stephen, that the technology is getting a lot smaller. And yeah, maybe those cameras that are the size of a grain of rice are $10,000 now. In a couple of
Yeah.
years, you're going to be picking them up on Amazon for $100.
Oh, you know what? 100%, Rick. You know, and you look, I look at the old CIA spy stuff. We all kind of laugh at it, but some of it was really pretty good stuff, even then.
Right.
Um, and Amazon's like sixth or seventh largest seller is spy cameras.
Wow.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I don't see people. I don't think a lot of people sit back and think about it. And now you got me thinking about it because I'm
I
thinking
know.
of all my neighbors, and
Yeah,
all of them have the doorbells that have the cameras on them.
yeah, they do. They
And
sure do.
I know a few neighbors that have cameras actually in their house, and because they're getting a lot cheaper, right? So people are buying
Oh yeah.
cameras for their house. They're buying outdoor cameras,
Mhm.
these doorbell cameras. So
Yep.
these are the cameras that I can see. So you bring up a
Right.
great point. What are these cameras that we don't see? And
Sure.
wow, yeah, that what a
You know,
great
I
idea
mean,
for a business. Great.
I was a victim of it, and so it drove me into it. But it was a lot. It's been a hard couple of years researching it, and it's a hard sale. You don't. It's like an insurance policy. You go to Starbucks. Starbucks has had instances with spy cameras. It's so you have a janitorial service that comes in for $30 a shot. Your greatest liability is not somebody slipping and falling at 1 a.m. It's Mr. Mrs. Jones, whose husband's an attorney, and she's in there with Junior, and she's on the pot. And Junior, and it's happened. Those baby changing fold
Hmm.
down shelves. One 10-year-old kid, mommy, what's the blue light under there for? Under
Wow.
the sinks.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy, and
it happens. Yeah,
it does. That's the sad part is that it does happen, and I
yeah.
don't. And as I was saying, I don't think a lot of people realize it, and I think a lot of people naively believe that it's not going on too. And I'm just like,
Oh,
I'm not that.
Rick, you know
Yeah.
what? You were so thought. I approached a guy about a couple of weeks ago at a pretty big restaurant, and he said, "I don't believe that stuff happens." Right off the bat, and that was cool. But the majority do, though. When I'm marketing and I talk, most of these companies are run by kids younger than I am, 60, so they're 42 years old, but they're all technos, and they've been around, and I've had like one person out of maybe marketing 100 companies in the last month that don't believe it. I mean, they do, whether they to take the service or not or what have you. But 99% of the people believe that absolutely the spy devices can be anywhere.
Okay, that's good. So people
Yeah,
are
that's good.
becoming more aware.
Sure.
Because I mean, I think it's just common. It should be common knowledge that you're basically
Yeah,
and the government tells you that now that you're on camera
yeah,
anytime you
yeah.
go out. So I mean, and I do believe a lot of people say there's they can monitor you through your television and through all these audio devices you're buying in that. I 100% believe that. I really do, and I believed it for years. That
Well, I just did a house, and I had you normally have to turn off their Wi-Fi devices, Bluetooth, everything. And the TV was on, and I was getting this hit for Bluetooth Wi-Fi. The TV's off, but it's plugged in. It's still sending me a Bluetooth Wi-Fi signal. The TV's off. Smart TV's off, but the electricity's still there, and I get a Bluetooth Wi-Fi signal off the television.
wow.
So it's broadcasting. Technically, it could be doing something. And the research tells me also that like a third of your cable boxes, dish boxes, let's say DVD discs or whatever, not VHSs anymore,
Right.
but cable boxes and televisions, 30, 30, 40% have spy camera in camera capabilities set up already inside.
That's scary. That
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing I've always suspected that when we're outside in public, yeah, you're being watched. You see cameras everywhere, but now when you got to start worrying about if they're in a restroom or your hotel room or anywhere, they could put them anywhere and you'd never know it. And I think it's what you said, Stephen. I think that's probably the worst contributor to it is the porn industry. I really do. I think there's a
yeah,
lot.
it's pretty big. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's money in it. Well, like those glasses you're wearing, Facebook just made a deal with Ray-Ban, and they got a nice set of spy glasses out there you're wearing just like that. So you
Really?
got you have Facebook and Ray-Ban that made a deal. What is that telling you now? Yeah, those glasses you're wearing right now could have a camera. Not that I mean, you'd buy them like that, but I'm saying they look like your glasses. Very stealth. But the interesting thing was is Facebook contracted with Ray-Ban to make a really, really good, superior spy glasses. Spy glasses are awesome. They're getting where, I mean, you can walk around, in public. What it is it's where there's an expectation of privacy, but privacy laws are going to get tighter eventually, hopefully. But you go to somebody's house or whatever, but you can lay those glasses on the shelf. But eyeglasses, the Ray-Ban Facebook thing, I'm going, why is that?
Yeah,
you know?
that's what I'm wondering too. And now that you
Yeah,
brought that up, like like why Ray-Ban and Facebook? That's
because you know what?
weird.
Because the sunglasses are IP too, so you can get that to Facebook from what you're seeing now. It goes into their algorithms. It's not. There's no mini SD in the glasses. It is Wi-Fi IP address or Bluetooth. Could be Bluetooth to that, but I mean
Wow.
it's going to get to that. Yeah,
So they're tapping into they want to tap into every aspect
yeah,
of our life. They want everything.
yeah.
Like
So you got Facebook, the biggest social platform, and you got one of the biggest sun or eyewear companies in the world, Ray-Ban.
wow.
It's like
That
kind of like Cheney and Halliburton, right?
yeah, like gee, I'm just now my mind's just wondering, like you said, like why Ray-Ban and Facebook, and you answer it well. Like
Yeah,
it it kind of logically makes sense what they're doing, but it's also really scary on top of that,
yeah,
like what they're doing.
yeah,
And what about the deals that are being made behind people's backs that we don't hear anything about? So,
right.
wow, that's crazy. But
I thought it was too. That was a while back. Yeah.
yeah, so
So
yeah, no, that's amazing. But I want to thank you. And if you please, I'm gonna just wrap the show up here, Stephen. But just stay in the
sure.
background because I
Okay.
still want to chat with you afterwards for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
couple of
yeah.
minutes.
Wrap it up. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I'll go ahead and wrap it up, and I'll be right back with you. I'm just gonna mute your mic, and then
Go ahead.
I'll wrap up the show, and then we'll talk a little bit after air.
Yeah,
But
I'll be gone for a sec here. Okay.
perfect. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Well, there we have it, everybody. Another great episode, and I want to thank you, Stephen Sanzeri, for taking the time to come and talk with us for this first episode because what an amazing episode. I'm looking forward so much to our second interview because we can really start digging in, and I want to dig into the book and start hearing about everything that went on in the book. And I tell you, people, you don't want to miss that interview because from what I've read in the book so far, and I'm planning on getting it done either tonight or tomorrow, it's a wild ride, and you're gonna want to hear it right from the man himself of what everything that he went through, and it's a great book. So make sure you definitely pick it up. I'm gonna definitely have a link to it in the description, as I keep saying. And if you want a good read, go and pick it up because you're gonna thank me after you read it. It's really a super well written book, very interesting, and it's crazy. It's just a crazy book, and I'm just so thankful that we're having the time to speak with him and hear about his life. And to me, it's just an extraordinary and amazing life from all the things he's done. Like it's a crazy, you know. Like I said, in bodybuilder, then having a gym, and then being a police officer, and then if that's not enough, then you're talking about it in the bounty hunting and bail bondsman, and now to the business that he has now, which is amazing. And I think that's so needed, and it's going to be more needed as technology gets better and better and smaller. And it's something that we all have to think about, like who's watching and where are these cameras. So it's something to think about, but it's really scary. And I think that his business that he's doing now, I'm probably going to try to leave a link to his website too in the description for that business of his in case you have any concerns or you have any questions. He'd be the guy to get a hold of. So I'm going to definitely leave a link for that too. But I definitely want to thank you for all taking the time to sit back, watch another great interview. There will be a part 2 coming. I'm going to try to set it up for a couple weeks from now whenever Steven's not busy, and we will dive right into like where we left off and talking about what's in his book, and we're going to go through all the stuff in the book, and it's going to be great. So make sure you're here. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining, and have a great day, great evening, wherever you're listening from. And I will be back very soon with another interview. So take care, guys.